On a cold afternoon, a millionaire discovers that his son with cerebral palsy has gone missing for a few minutes in a park. Upon arriving, he finds a homeless girl carrying the boy through the mud in a touching act of compassion. But when he hears the girl's name, the same he had chosen for the daughter who was never born, a long-buried truth begins to surface. The sky over Ashton Creek, in the heart of North Carolina, seemed to reflect Gregory Harrington's state of mind that July morning. Heavy clouds were gathering, heralding an unseasonal cold front for the region known for its heat and the powerful tobacco industry that generated billions. Seated at the imposing rosewood desk in his office, the 45-year-old businessman watched the vast tobacco fields stretch to the horizon through the panoramic window. The empire built by 3 generations of the Harrington family was now under his absolute command. Gregory adjusted his tie and checked his watch for the 3rd time in 5 minutes. The meeting with foreign investors was an hour away, and the numbers from the last harvest exceeded all expectations. The St. Helen Mill, named in honor of his late wife, had become the largest producer of processed tobacco in the Carolina heartland under his management. His professional success, however, contrasted sharply with the emptiness that echoed through the rooms of his mansion since Helen had passed away, a victim of a congenital heart condition 3 years ago. "Mr. Harrington, Julia is on line 1. It sounds urgent," announced Marissa, his secretary, over the intercom. Gregory frowned. Julia rarely interrupted him at work unless something serious had happened to Peter, his 4-year-old son, who suffered from cerebral palsy. His heart quickened as he reached for the phone. "Julia? Did something happen to Peter?" The nanny's voice trembled on the other end of the line. "Mr. Harrington, I'm so sorry. I only took my eyes off him for 3 minutes, I swear. We were at Willow Creek Park, in the adapted area for special needs children, and he's gone." "What do you mean, gone, Julia?" Gregory's voice rose as he was already getting up from his chair. "He's in a wheelchair, for God's sake. I know, sir, I took a call from my sick daughter, and when I turned around I couldn't find him. I've looked everywhere. The park security guard is helping me, but with this rain starting—" Gregory didn't wait for the rest of the explanation. He left the phone dangling, ignored the documents on his desk, and the approaching multi-million-dollar meeting. He grabbed his car keys from his pocket and ran through the mill's corridors, shouting for his secretary to cancel all his appointments. Within minutes, his black Range Rover was cutting through the avenues of Ashton Creek at high speed as thick drops began to dot the windshield. Willow Creek Park was less than 10 minutes from the mill. Created with partial funding from Gregory himself after Peter's birth, the place had areas specially designed for children with disabilities. It was the boy's favorite refuge on less crowded weekdays. As he parked haphazardly near the main gate, the rain was already falling heavily. Gregory got out of the car, not caring about getting wet, and ran towards the children's area. The park was almost deserted due to the sudden storm. From a distance, he saw Julia talking animatedly with a security guard, sheltering under a small awning. "Julia," he shouted, approaching. "Mr. Harrington, I'm still looking, but—" "Which way do you think he could have gone?" He cut her off, not hiding the anger and desperation in his voice. The security guard pointed to a path that led to a small artificial lake. "We just received a report that a child in a wheelchair was seen near the lake, sir." Without hesitation, Gregory shot off in the indicated direction, his heart in his throat. The rain now completely soaked his expensive clothes, and his Italian shoes sank into the mud forming on the path. The trail descended slightly, becoming steeper around the bend that curved around the small rise hiding the lake. It was then that he saw the scene that would change his life forever. A frail girl, no older than 8, with soaked black hair stuck to her thin face, was pulling with all the strength her small body could muster at Peter's wheelchair, which was stuck in the mud on the path. The girl was barefoot, in worn-out clothes far too large for her, yet with superhuman determination she was trying to move the heavy chair to a safe place, shielding Peter from the rain with a piece of plastic that looked like it had been picked from the trash. "Peter!" Gregory yelled, running towards the children. The girl looked up, startled, but did not let go of the chair. Her deep brown eyes met Gregory's with a mixture of relief and suspicion. Peter, on the other hand, smiled upon recognizing his father, his small hands clapping excitedly on the armrests. "Daddy, look! Sophia helped me!" Gregory reached the children in seconds, taking his son into his arms and hugging him tightly against his chest. "Son, are you okay? Are you hurt?" Peter shook his head, still smiling. "Sophia found me, Daddy. I was scared, but she said everything would be okay." Only then did Gregory turn his attention to the girl, who was now slowly backing away as if planning to disappear silently. Her bare feet were bruised and covered in mud. "Wait, how did you know he needed help?" The girl shrugged, averting her gaze. "I heard him crying." The chair had slipped down near the lake. There was something in the girl's expression, something familiar, that Gregory couldn't place. Her features, despite the dirt and thinness, had a delicacy that contrasted with the hardness that life on the streets usually imprinted. "Sophia, you said?" he asked, adjusting Peter in his arms. "Is that your name?" The girl nodded, looking at her own feet. "Sophia Grace." Gregory felt a shiver run down his spine that had nothing to do with the cold rain. Sophia Grace, exactly the name Helen had chosen for the daughter they dreamed of having after Peter. A name he had never mentioned to anyone but his wife, a name that was only in Helen's private journal, kept safe since her passing. "Daddy, can Sophia come home with us? She's cold." Peter's voice interrupted his confused thoughts. The rain was now falling harder. The girl was trembling visibly, hugging her own thin body, but she maintained a dignified gaze, asking for nothing. "Where do you live, Sophia?" Gregory asked, still stunned by the coincidence of the name. "Around," she answered vaguely, pointing towards the city center. "Do you have family? Anyone who takes care of you?" The girl shook her head. Her eyes, for a brief moment, met Gregory's, and he felt as if something inexplicable connected him to this child. "Peter's right. It's very cold and you helped us. Come with us to my house. You can have a hot bath, something to eat, and wait for the rain to pass." Sophia hesitated, suspicious, as any child who had learned to survive on the streets would be. However, Peter's sincere smile and Gregory's outstretched hand, offering protection from the intensifying storm, eventually convinced her. What none of the three could have imagined was that this seemingly simple decision, made in the midst of an unexpected storm, would be the first step on a journey that would reveal secrets buried for years and intertwine their destinies irreversibly. The Harrington Mansion was an imposing colonial-style house situated in the most exclusive district of Ashton Creek. As the Range Rover passed through the automatic gates, Sophia watched through the window, wide-eyed, at the meticulously manicured gardens and the marble fountain that adorned the circular driveway. Mr. Anthony, the butler who had served the family for over 20 years, was waiting at the door with dry towels and a worried expression. "Mr. Harrington, thank God. Julia called in a panic about Master Peter. Everything's fine now. Anthony, Peter is safe." Gregory handed his son over to the butler's care and turned to Sophia, who remained standing in the rain, hesitant to step onto the immaculate marble floor of the entrance hall. "This is Sophia. She helped Peter in the park and will be staying with us until the rain passes." The butler observed the girl with curiosity, but without judgment. "Of course, sir. I'll prepare the guest room and ask Mrs. Rose to heat up some soup." Gregory led Sophia inside the mansion, aware of the contrast between the surrounding luxury and the girl's condition. She walked carefully, as if afraid to break or dirty something, keeping her arms pressed against her thin body. "You can have a hot bath first," Gregory suggested gently. "I'll ask the housekeeper to find some clean clothes. They'll probably be big on you, but they'll be better than these wet ones." Sophia just nodded, her eyes scanning every detail of the opulent decor. As they passed through the main living room, she stopped abruptly before a large portrait above the fireplace. The painting showed Gregory Peter as a baby, and a woman of serene beauty with long dark hair and golden brown eyes. "That's Mommy in heaven," explained Peter, who was watching the girl's reaction from Mr. Anthony's arms. "She was pretty, wasn't she?" Sophia didn't answer. She continued to stare at Helen's portrait, as if trying to memorize every feature of that face. Gregory felt a lump in his throat, There was something deeply unsettling about the way this girl looked at his late wife's portrait. Something familiar and yet inexplicable. "Come on, I'll show you where you can take a bath," he said, breaking the moment. The housekeeper, Mrs. Rose, led Sophia to one of the guest bathrooms, equipped, with a bathtub that looked the size of a swimming pool to the girl's eyes. Meanwhile, Gregory helped Peter change and checked to make sure his son was truly all right after the scare in the park. "Sophia is my friend now, Daddy," Peter declared as Gregory tucked him into bed for a rest. "She helped you, son. She was very brave." Peter smiled, his eyes lighting up in a way Gregory had rarely seen since Helen's passing. "She said she always wanted a little brother like me." That simple sentence stirred a strange unease in Gregory. He kissed his son's forehead and left the room, finding Mr. Anthony in the hallway. "Have you informed the police about the girl, sir?" the butler asked in a low voice. "She seems to be a case of neglect." Gregory hadn't thought of that. The law certainly required authorities to be notified about a minor living on the streets, but something stopped him from doing it immediately. "Let's let her rest first, Anthony. We'll decide what to do tomorrow." An hour later, Gregory, Peter, and Sophia were gathered at the dining table. The transformation in the girl's appearance was remarkable. Clean and dressed. In one of Peter's t-shirts that served as a dress on her small frame, Sophia looked like a different person. Her black hair, now dry, fell in waves over her shoulders, and her skin, free of dirt, was revealed to be fair and delicate. But most striking were her eyes, large, expressive, and a golden brown that Gregory knew all too well. The same eyes that watched him daily from the portrait above the fireplace. During dinner, Gregory observed the girl's manners with intrigue. Despite being visibly hungry, Sophia ate with surprising politeness, holding her silverware correctly and maintaining an upright posture. These were not the behaviors expected of a child who lived on the streets. "You said your name is Sophia Grace, right?" Gregory asked, trying to keep his tone casual. "Who chose that name?" The girl finished chewing carefully before answering. "It was my mom before she went to heaven. At least that's what Aunt Alma told me." "Aunt Alma?" "The lady who took care of me when I was little. She said my mom had left a letter with my name, but I never saw it. Aunt Alma went to heaven too when I was 4. Gregory felt his heart race. "And since then, who has taken care of you?" Sophia shrugged as if the answer were obvious. "Myself. Sometimes people at the farmer's market gave me food, and I slept in a shelter near the bus terminal when it rained a lot." Peter, who was listening intently to the conversation while playing with his food, chimed in. "But now you can stay here with us, right, Daddy?" Before Gregory could answer, Sophia continued. "Aunt Alma always said I had to be polite and study hard, because one day my real family would find me. She taught me to read with old magazines." "You know how to read?" Gregory asked, surprised. Sophia nodded, a hint of pride in her eyes. "I can read and do sums. Aunt Alma said I was very smart for my age." After dinner, while Peter was being prepared for bed, Gregory took Sophia to see the mansion's library. The girl's reaction to the thousands of books was revealing. Her eyes shone with genuine fascination, and her small hands touched the spines of the volumes with reverence. "Can I read one?" she asked timidly. Gregory nodded, watching as she carefully selected a book of American short stories. Sophia sat in an armchair far too large for her and began to read aloud with surprising fluency for a child who had never attended school. That night, after Sophia had fallen asleep in the guest room and the storm had finally subsided outside, Gregory retrieved Helen's journal from the safe in his office. With trembling hands, he opened it to the final pages where his wife had written her last thoughts before she passed. There it was. "If we ever have a girl, I'd like to name her Sophia Grace. Sophia for the wisdom I hope she has in her life, and Grace because she would be the Grace in our lives just as Peter has been." Coincidence? Gregory no longer believed in coincidences. Sophia's age corresponded exactly to the period when Helen had traveled to care for her ailing mother, being away for nearly 3 months. At the time, Gregory was immersed in the mill's expansion and had only visited his wife twice during that period. Could Helen have hidden something so significant? Why? A detail mentioned by Sophia echoed in his mind, the letter that Alma claimed to have received, specifying the girl's name. Helen had always communicated through handwritten letters, a habit Gregory found charmingly old-fashioned. Determined to investigate further, Gregory went to Peter's room. The boy was fast asleep. On the small table beside the bed, a carved wooden box held the few items that had belonged to Helen and that Peter liked to keep close. Gregory opened the box carefully so as not to wake his son. Among photographs, a scarf with a barely perceptible scent of perfume, and small mementos, he found an envelope he didn't recognize. It was addressed to Peter in the unmistakable handwriting of Mrs. Cecilia, Helen's mother, who had passed away a few months after her daughter. Inside the envelope was an old photograph. Gregory felt the air leave his lungs as he stared at the image. Helen, clearly younger, holding a newborn baby wrapped in a pink blanket. On the back of the photo, Mrs. Cecilia's shaky handwriting formed a message that would change everything. For my beloved grandson, Peter, when you are old enough to understand, this is your little sister, Sophia Grace, born on June 10th, 2016. May you one day find each other and complete the family your mother dreamed of so much. With love, Grandma Cecilia. Gregory didn't sleep that night. The photograph discovered in Peter's room burned in his hands like a live coal, challenging everything he thought he knew about his marriage. Sitting on the mansion's veranda, he watched the sky gradually lighten, heralding the arrival of morning. The storm had passed, leaving the air clean and cool, but the storm within him was just beginning. The dates made sense. Helen's trip to care for her ailing mother, Mrs. Cecilia, had occurred exactly 9 months before the date of birth indicated on the photograph. Gregory recalled his wife's insistence on staying longer than initially planned, citing complications in her mother's health. At the time, engrossed in the mill's largest expansion, he hadn't questioned it. Why would Helen hide a pregnancy? Why would she give up her newborn daughter? And most importantly, why had she never revealed the truth even years later? The only person who could clarify these questions was Beatrice, Helen's sister. The two had always been extremely close, and if anyone knew a secret, it would be her. At 6 in the morning, regardless of the early hour, Gregory picked up the phone and dialed his sister-in-law's number, in Atlanta. "Gregory?" Beatrice's sleepy voice sounded worried on the other end. "Did something happen to Peter?" "Peter's fine, Beatrice. I need you to come to Ashton Creek today. It's urgent." "What is it about?" she asked, now wide awake. Gregory hesitated, deciding not to reveal anything over the phone. "I'd rather talk in person. It's about Helen." A heavy silence hung on the line before Beatrice's reply. "I'll be there by early afternoon." After hanging up, Gregory realized he wasn't alone on the veranda. Sophia was watching him from the doorway, her small bare feet silent on the cold floor. "Good morning," she said in a soft voice. "Can I see the garden?" The morning light bathed the girl's face, highlighting features that, now that Gregory knew what to look for, seemed obvious. The shape of her eyes, the curve of her lips, even the way she tilted her head slightly while waiting for an answer, all small echoes of Helen. "Of course you can," he replied, trying to control the emotion in his voice. "Would you like some company?" Sophia nodded, a shy smile lighting up her face. Together they went down to the back garden where roses, of various colors, Helen's passion, formed geometric beds around a small ornamental pond. "They're beautiful," Sophia whispered, carefully approaching a bed of yellow roses. "Can I touch?" "Are they your favorite?" Gregory asked, watching her reaction closely. "I don't know. I think so. They seem—" She hesitated, frowning as if trying to grasp a distant memory. "They seem familiar." Helen had adored yellow roses. She said they brought light even on the greyest days. "Mr. Harrington?" Julia's voice interrupted his thoughts. The nanny had arrived to care for Peter, as she did every day. Her face still showed signs of the previous day's desperation. "May I speak with you for a moment?" Gregory asked Sophia to wait for him and took a few steps away with Julia. "Sir, I wanted to apologize again for yesterday. I know I was negligent, and I'll understand if you want me to leave." "It wasn't your fault, Julia," Gregory interrupted. Peter is fine, that's what matters. Besides, if it weren't for that scare, we might never have found Sophia." The nanny glanced towards the girl, who was now kneeling to get a better look at a butterfly that had landed on the roses. "She's the child. Who helped Peter? Are you planning to keep her?" The question caught Gregory by surprise, not because of the inquiry itself, but because he hadn't consciously formulated that possibility yet. However, looking at Sophia, he felt a growing certainty within him. "I believe she is part of this family, Julia. She always has been." The nanny nodded, not fully understanding the meaning of his words, and went into the mansion to wake Peter. During the morning, Gregory made several calls, cancelling meetings and rearranging his schedule for the next few days. Something far more important than business now demanded his attention. Meanwhile, Sophia and Peter played in the playroom under Julia's supervision. The connection between the children was impressive. Sophia showed extraordinary patience and understanding of Peter's limitations, adapting games to include him and celebrating his every small achievement. "She has a special way with Peter," Julia commented while serving lunch. "It's as if they've known each other for years." Shortly after 2 in the afternoon, Beatrice arrived at the mansion. At 40, she was a sturdier version of Helen, with the same dark hair, though shorter, and eyes identical to her sister's and to Sophia's. Gregory led her directly to his office, a spacious room with windows overlooking the distant tobacco fields. Before they began their conversation, he asked Julia to keep the children entertained in another part of the house. "You're scaring me, Gregory," Beatrice said, declining the drink he offered. "What happened?" Without a word, Gregory handed her the photograph he had found the night before. He watched carefully as every micro-expression crossed his sister-in-law's face: surprise, recognition, fear, and finally resignation. "Where did you find this?" she asked in a near whisper. "In Peter's room, in a box with Helen's things. Apparently your mother left this photo for him for when he was old enough to understand." Gregory kept his tone controlled, but his eyes betrayed the storm of emotions. "I want the truth, Beatrice. All of it." The woman rose from the armchair and walked to the window, turning her back to Gregory. When she finally spoke, her voice was choked with emotion. "Helen found out she was pregnant shortly before Mom got sick. It was a surprise, since you weren't planning on another child so soon, especially after the complications with Peter's birth. Why didn't she tell me?" Beatrice turned to face him, silent tears streaming down her face. "Because the doctors said it would be risky. Her heart condition had worsened after Peter was born. They recommended terminating the pregnancy to preserve her health." Gregory felt as if something heavy was crushing his chest. "And she decided to hide it from me." "She knew you would insist she follow the medical advice. Helen didn't want to put you in that impossible position, choosing between her life and the baby's, so she chose on her own." Beatrice wiped her tears. "She decided to have the baby, but she knew she'd need complete bed rest in the final months. That's why she insisted on staying so long to care for Mum. It was an excuse to be away without raising suspicion. And you and your mother went along with this. We tried to convince her to tell you, Gregory, but Helen was stubborn when she made up her mind about something. She said that if you knew about the pregnancy and something happened to her, you would blame yourself for the rest of your life. She preferred to take the risk alone." Gregory ran his hands over his face, trying to process the revelation. "And the baby? What happened after she was born?" Beatrice sat down again, as if the weight of the memories was too much to bear standing. "The pregnancy was difficult, as the doctors predicted. Helen had to be hospitalized for the last month, under constant monitoring. The birth had to be an emergency C-section. The baby was born healthy, but Helen almost didn't make it. She was in the ICU for 2 weeks. And the girl. Helen knew she couldn't bring her home right away. She needed to recover first and then tell you everything gradually. So we found a trustworthy caregiver, Alma, a retired nurse who had worked with Mum for years. The plan was for her to care for the baby for a few months, until Helen was strong enough to take on motherhood and face the consequences of her decision." Gregory felt a chill. "But that never happened." "No." Beatrice swallowed hard. "When Helen finally recovered enough to come home, we got the news. Alma had disappeared with the baby. just vanished, leaving no address or contact. We hired private investigators, but we could never find them. Helen came home without her daughter and without telling me anything. She was devastated, Gregory. She planned to tell you everything as soon as she got the baby back. She believed it was only a matter of time until we found Alma. But months passed with no news. Helen fell into a silent depression that only Peter could alleviate. She never stopped looking, always investigating discreetly, visiting orphanages, checking records. A piece of the puzzle fell into place in Gregory's mind. Her frequent trips to Atlanta, they weren't just to visit you and your mother, were they? Beatrice shook her head. She never gave up on finding Sophia, not until her last day. At that moment, a soft knock on the door interrupted the conversation. Julia opened the door a crack, looking embarrassed by the intrusion. "I'm sorry, Mr. Harrington, but I thought you needed to see this." The nanny entered the office, leading Sophia by the hand. The girl was carrying a small object that Gregory recognized immediately, the silver crescent moon-shaped locket that Helen always wore, a gift he had given her on their wedding day. "She found it in the guest room," Julia explained. "It was inside the lining of an old pillow." Sophia held the locket out to Gregory. "Is this yours, mister? I know I shouldn't take things that aren't mine, but this looks like one I had when I was little. Aunt Alma said it belonged to my real mom." The silver locket gleamed in Sophia's small hand, catching the last rays of the afternoon sun that streamed through the office windows. Gregory felt the world around him momentarily disappear, reduced to just that object and the anxious face of the girl before him. "Helen had 2 identical lockets," Beatrice whispered, slowly approaching Sophia. "She kept one and placed the other with the baby when... They had to be separated." Sophia looked back and forth between the 2 adults, her sharp eyes picking up on the tension in the room. "Did you know my real mom?" The question, so direct and innocent, hung in the air like crystal about to shatter. Gregory exchanged a look with Beatrice, a silent dialogue about how much to reveal at that moment. "Sophia," Gregory knelt to be at the girl's eye level, "this locket is very important. You said you had one like it when you were little?" The girl nodded. "Aunt Alma let me wear it on special days. She said it was so I would never forget I had a real family somewhere. But after she went to heaven, an older boy on the street stole it from me." Beatrice covered her mouth with her hands, trying to contain her emotion. Julia, sensing the intensity of the moment, offered to take Sophia back to her activities with Peter, but Gregory signaled for her to leave them. When they were alone with the girl again, Gregory led Sophia to the office sofa, sitting beside her. He held the locket carefully, opening it to reveal 2 tiny photographs, and one side Helen's smiling face, on the other Peter as a baby. "Do you know this woman, Sophia?" The girl examined the photograph intently, frowning in concentration. "I don't know. Sometimes I dream about a woman who looks like her. In my dreams, she sings to me." Gregory and Beatrice exchanged emotional glances. Helen had always sung to Peter, and she had likely done the same during her pregnancy and in her few moments with newborn Sophia. "Sophia, we need to talk about something very important," Gregory began, measuring each word. "But first, I want you to know that you are safe here, and nothing we discover will change that." The girl nodded, her expression serious beyond her 8 years, like someone accustomed to receiving difficult news. "There is a possibility, a strong one, that you are my biological daughter. My daughter and the daughter of this woman in the photograph, Helen, who was my wife." Sophia's eyes widened, but she showed no shock or disbelief, only an intense curiosity. "How can you be sure?" she asked, pragmatic. It was Beatrice who answered, her voice choked with emotion. "The locket is a clue. Your age, your name, and especially—" She hesitated, looking at Gregory. "Especially your eyes," he completed. "Identical to Helen's." Sophia remained silent for long seconds, processing the information. Finally, in a near whisper, she asked, "If I am your daughter, what happens to me now?" "You would stay with us," Gregory answered immediately. "This is your home, Sophia. It always has been." And you're not mad that your wife hid that she had a daughter? The question, so mature and perceptive, caught Gregory by surprise. He sighed deeply before answering. I'm sad that I wasn't there for you all these years, that I couldn't protect you. But I understand why Helen did what she did. She believed she was doing what was best for everyone. Beatrice wiped away a tear. Your mother never stopped looking for you, Sophia. Never. The girl looked at the locket again, touching the image of Helen with her fingertips. Can I keep this? Of course you can, Gregory replied, closing the locket and placing it in Sophia's palm. It belongs to you. A comfortable silence settled in the office, each lost in their own thoughts, until Sophia broke it. Can I see Peter now? I want to tell him I might be his real sister. Gregory smiled, admiring the resilience of this little soul. We can tell him together, but first, Sophia, I'd like to do a test to officially confirm that you are my daughter. It's a simple DNA test, which will prove to everyone what we already feel in our hearts. The girl considered the proposal and then nodded solemnly. Okay, can we have cake after? Peter said your cook makes the best chocolate cake in the world. Gregory couldn't help but laugh, the first genuine laugh in a long time. The best chocolate cake for the most special occasion. That same afternoon, Dr. Morris, the family's private physician for years, came discreetly to the mansion to collect samples for the DNA test. Sophia faced the procedure bravely, only squeezing Gregory's hand when the needle entered her arm for the blood draw. How long until we know for sure? Gregory asked as he walked the doctor to the door. I can expedite it at the lab. We'll have the results in 48 hours, tops. 2 days, just 2 days, to officially confirm what his heart already recognized as truth. During dinner, Sophia sat between Gregory and Peter, who was ecstatic at the possibility of having an older sister. Beatrice decided to stay in Ashton Creek until the test results came in, staying in one of the mansion's guest rooms. If you really are my sister, I'm going to show you my entire dinosaur collection, Peter declared enthusiastically. Sophia smiled, helping him cut his meat into smaller pieces. And I'll teach you how to do origami. I learned from a Japanese man who sold fruit at the farmer's market. Observing the interaction between the children, Beatrice leaned in to speak quietly to Gregory. It's incredible how they hit it off immediately, as if they've always known somehow. After dinner, while the children watched a movie in the TV room, Gregory and Beatrice continued their conversation in the office, now trying to piece together the events that separated Sophia from the family. What do we know about this Alma? Gregory asked, pouring himself a strong drink. Beatrice sighed. Alma Alves, retired nurse, widow, no children. Mom had known her for decades. She was considered completely trustworthy. We never imagined she would just disappear with the child. Do you think she planned it from the beginning? I don't know. Helen said that in the first few months, Alma sent pictures of the baby regularly. Then, when Sophia was about 3 months old, the messages started to become less frequent, until they stopped completely. When we tried to find her at the address we had, we discovered she had moved without notice. And you never found out where she went? Beatrice shook her head. We hired a private detective, Albert Mendez. He tracked Alma to Greensboro, then lost the trail. Years later, we learned she had passed away, but nothing about the girl. Gregory typed something on his laptop. I'm going to contact Mendez again. I need to understand exactly what happened. Why would Alma run off with Sophia? For money, revenge. Helen believed she might have grown too attached to the child. Alma had lost her only son in an accident years before. Sophia may have filled a void in her life. The following days were a mix of anxiety and adjustment. Gregory hired a social worker, specializing in vulnerable children, to help Sophia with her transition. The girl, though clearly happy with the prospect of having found her family, exhibited behaviors that revealed her years of survival on the streets. She hid food under her mattress, startled at sudden movements, and sometimes woke up screaming in the middle of the night. On the morning of the 3rd day, Gregory's phone rang. It was Dr. Maurice. I have the results, Gregory, the doctor said without preamble. The probability of paternity is over 99.9%. Sophia is without a doubt your biological daughter. Despite already expecting this result, the official confirmation hit Gregory like a physical wave. He thanked the doctor and hung up, remaining motionless in his office for several minutes, letting the reality sink in. His daughter. The daughter Helen had kept secret to protect. The daughter who had lived for years on the streets, hungry and cold, while he enjoyed the luxury of the mansion, unaware of her existence. The office door opened slowly, and Sophia appeared, hesitant. "Can I come in?" she asked, not yet entirely comfortable moving freely through the house that was now officially hers. "Of course," Gregory replied, gesturing to the armchair beside him. "I was just thinking of looking for you." Sophia sat down, her legs dangling without reaching the floor. She wore a simple dress that Beatrice had bought for her the day before, the first new piece of clothing in her life. "Was that the doctor on the phone?" she asked, displaying the sharp perception Gregory was beginning to recognize as a characteristic trait of his daughter. "Yes." He confirmed what we already knew in our hearts, Sophia. "You are my daughter. Our daughter, mine and Helen's." Sophia absorbed the news without any exaggerated display of emotion, just a slight nod, as if finally confirming something she had long suspected. "So I can call you Dad?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. Gregory felt an emotion so intense that for a moment he couldn't reply. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. "Nothing would make me happier, Sophia." The girl slid off the armchair, and with the naturalness of someone who has finally found their place in the world, she hugged Gregory. It was a hug that started shyly but gradually transformed into something deep and necessary, as if both were recovering in that instant all the hugs lost over the years. "Dad," she murmured against his chest, testing the word she had never used before, and then, lifting her face marked by tears she finally allowed herself to shed, she repeated, with more conviction, "My dad." The first rays of sun pierced through the gaps in the curtains as Sophia woke with a start. For a moment, panic seized her, the automatic instinct of someone waking in an unfamiliar place after years of sleeping in makeshift shelters. Then gradually reality settled in, the spacious room decorated in soft shades of green, the soft bed, the smell of clean sheets. It wasn't a dream. This was her home now. This was her life. Sitting up in bed, Sophia touched the silver locket she hadn't taken off since receiving it. Inside, the face of Helen, her biological mother, seemed to smile at her. It was strange to miss someone she had never known, but the feeling was there, undeniable. A month had passed since the DNA test confirmation, a month of adjustments, discoveries, and rebuilding. Gregory had immediately moved to regularize Sophia's legal situation, a process made easier by the paternity test. The social worker, Dr. Renata, visited the mansion weekly to monitor the girl's integration, and a child psychologist, Dr. Camilla, came twice a week for therapy sessions. "The traumas of abandonment and life on the streets don't disappear overnight," Dr. Camilla had explained. To Gregory, "Sophia has developed defense mechanisms to survive that will take time to adjust to her new reality." And indeed, despite her apparent adaptation, Sophia still exhibited behaviors that betrayed her past. She woke before dawn, a habit of someone who needed to secure the best spots for begging. She ate quickly, as if afraid the food might run out or be taken away at any moment. And most notably, she watched everyone and everything with a vigilant gaze, always ready to identify potential threats. That morning, as had become her routine, Sophia got up silently and walked to Peter's room. Her brother usually woke around 7, but she liked to be there when he opened his eyes. There was something comforting in seeing the boy's serene face, in being the first person he saw upon waking. "Good morning, sleepyhead," she whispered, sitting on the edge of Peter's adapted bed. The boy opened his eyes slowly, an immediate smile forming as he recognized his sister. "Hi, Sophia. Is today the day we take Typhoon for a walk?" Typhoon was a golden retriever Gregory had adopted from a shelter 2 weeks prior, following the psychologist's recommendation. The dog, already trained, as a support animal, helped with both Peter's mobility and Sophia's emotional recovery. "Yes, Dad promised to take us to the park after breakfast," she replied, helping Peter to sit up. The word Dad still sounded strange on her lips, but every time she said it, she felt a small victory over her past of abandonment. Breakfast at the Harrington mansion had become a much more cheerful event since Sophia's arrival. The large breakfast nook table, once occupied only by a silent Gregory and Peter, now resonated with conversation and occasional laughter. "Good morning, family," Gregory greeted, entering the nook. As Sophia helped Peter settle into his special chair. "Did everyone sleep well?" Peter nodded enthusiastically, but Sophia averted her gaze. Gregory noticed immediately. His daughter had had another nightmare. "How about we go to the mall after the park?" he suggested, trying to cheer her up. "Beatrice mentioned you need school supplies for next week." Sophia looked up, a shadow of anxiety crossing her face. The prospect of starting school, even a private institution with a special program for children in readaptation, clearly frightened her. "What if I can't keep up with the classes?" she murmured, listlessly stirring her cereal. "You're smart, Sophia. You taught yourself to read, remember? School will just organize the knowledge you're already building." The girl didn't seem convinced. "What if the other kids make fun of me? My clothes, the way I am?" It was Peter who intervened, with the sincerity characteristic of his 4 years. "You're the coolest person I know. Everyone will want to be your friend." Sophia smiled, warmed by her brother's unconditional support. "Thanks, Peter." After breakfast, while the children prepared for their outing to the park, Gregory retreated to his office for an important call. The detective, Albert Mendez, had finally returned his call with new information about Sophia's past. "I managed to locate Alma Alves's last known address," Mendez reported. "It was a small house in Chapel Hill, where she lived until her death 4 years ago. The neighbors confirmed she was raising a little girl whom she called her granddaughter. And after Alma passed away, who took care of Sophia? No one, apparently. The girl simply disappeared after the funeral. According to witnesses, she ran away when she heard she was going to be taken to a children's home." Gregory pinched the bridge of his nose, trying to push away the image of a 4-year-old Sophia, frightened and alone, running away. "Any clues as to why Alma took Sophia in the first place?" "I found something interesting in her medical records. Alma was diagnosed with an obsessive disorder shortly before she met your wife and the baby. She had lost her only son in an accident years earlier and never fully recovered. Psychiatric reports indicate a growing fixation on the idea of saving children from imminent danger." "Are you suggesting she took Sophia believing she was protecting her?" "It's possible. In her disturbed mind, she might have thought she was doing the right thing. I found letters among her belongings, never sent, addressed to your wife, explaining that the girl was safe with her and that one day, when the danger passed, she would return her." Gregory thanked him for the information and hung up, disturbed. The story was even more tragic than he had imagined, a succession of distorted good intentions that resulted in suffering for everyone involved. Helen, trying to protect her pregnancy. Alma, believing she was protecting the child. And Sophia, the innocent victim, losing years of family life. Later, at the park, watching Sophia run. With Typhoon while Peter followed in his adapted motorized wheelchair, Gregory felt a mixture of gratitude and sorrow. So much lost time, so many moments he could never get back. Sophia's first steps, her first words, her first drawings. "What are you thinking about?" Beatrice's voice interrupted his reverie. His sister-in-law had come to visit for the weekend, bringing gifts for her niece and nephew. "About how the decisions we make, even with the best intentions, can have unforeseen consequences," Gregory replied, not taking his eyes off the children. "If Helen had trusted me from the beginning—" "Don't torture yourself with that, Gregory. Helen did what she thought was best at the time with the information she had." "I know. I just wish I'd had the chance to show her we could have faced it together." Beatrice lightly touched her brother-in-law's arm. "You're getting that chance now with Sophia." At the mall later, Sophia walked hand in hand with Peter, marveling at the shop windows and lights. For a child who had grown up on the streets, this environment was both fascinating and intimidating. In the bookstore, while they were selecting school supplies, Sophia stopped in front of a shelf of children's books. Her fingers reverently touched the colorful cover of The Little Mermaid. "Helen loved this story," Beatrice commented, approaching her. "Did you know she used to read stories to you when she was pregnant? She said you would be a great reader one day." Sophia hugged the book to her chest. "Can I get it, Dad?" "Of course," Gregory replied, noticing the sparkle in his daughter's eyes. "You can pick as many as you want." Upon returning to the mansion in the late afternoon, Sophia asked to visit the room that had been Helen's. Gregory had kept the room almost untouched since his wife's passing, only removing a few personal items. "I want to get to know my mum better," Sophia explained, standing at the bedroom door. "May I?" Gregory hesitated for only a second before nodding. It was an important step in their healing process. The room was spacious and elegant, decorated in shades of blue and white. A large photograph of Helen on the dressing table captured her luminous smile, the same golden eyes that Sophia had inherited. "She was beautiful," Sophia murmured, approaching the picture. "Inside and out," Gregory agreed, his voice thick with emotion. "You have so much of her in you, you know? Not just in your looks, but in your strength, your determination." Sophia carefully explored the room, touching Helen's personal belongings as if she could absorb through them the essence of the mother she never knew. Books on the shelf, a collection of seashells, half-full bottles of perfume. In a drawer of the dressing table, she found a green leather-bound notebook. "Can I look?" Gregory recognized Helen's journal. "It's your mother's diary. Maybe it's better if you read it when you're a little older." But Sophia was already flipping through it, stopping at a page marked with a silk ribbon. "It says, 'For my daughter, if we ever meet,'" she said, looking at Gregory with pleading eyes. "Please, Dad, I need to know what she wanted to tell me." How could he deny her this moment? Gregory nodded, sitting beside his daughter on the edge of the bed he had shared with Helen for so many years. Sophia read aloud, with the surprising fluency she had developed on her own. "My dearest Sophia Grace, if you are one day reading these words, it means we have finally found each other. I don't know how much time will have passed, nor how old you will be, but I want you to know this. You were wanted and loved from the very first moment. Every decision I made was with your safety and well-being in mind. If we were separated, it was not for lack of love or abandonment. It was because circumstances beyond my control pushed us apart. Know that I never stopped looking for you, never stopped imagining your face, your smile, your voice. You, my Sophia Grace, are the continuation of my existence, the proof that love transcends even the most painful separation. Whoever you are, wherever you may be, my love for you is eternal and unconditional." When she finished reading, silent tears were streaming down Sophia's face. For the first time since her arrival at the mansion, she allowed herself to cry openly, without reservation or fear of appearing weak. They were not just tears of sadness, but of recognition, of belonging, of the final acceptance of her story. Gregory held her, also crying without shame. Together, father and daughter shared that moment of grief and celebration, of closure and new beginnings. "She really loved me," Sophia whispered between sobs. "She never abandoned me." "Never," Gregory confirmed. "Just as I would have never abandoned you if I had known you existed. And now that I've found you, Sophia Grace Harrington, we will never be separated again." Sophia lifted her tear-streaked face, a fragile but genuine smile illuminating her features. "Promise?" "I promise. From now on, always together. You, me, and Peter, a family." At that moment, as if summoned by the mention of his name, Peter appeared at the bedroom door, Typhoon by his side, determinedly pushing the controls of his motorized wheelchair. "Dad? Sophia? Why are you crying?" Sophia quickly wiped her tears and smiled at her brother. "We're remembering Mommy, Peter. Good things that make us emotional." Peter came closer, extending his small hand to touch his sister's face. "Mommy in heaven is happy because you came home, Sophia. She told me in a dream." The simplicity of that declaration deeply touched father and daughter. It was as if Helen somehow was blessing this reunion, this family gathering she had so desperately wanted. "I'm sure she is, son," Gregory replied, hugging both his children. "She must be very, very happy." 6 months had passed since Sophia's arrival at the Harrington mansion. The garden, once impeccably organized, now showed visible signs that children inhabited the space. A treehouse carefully adapted so Peter could access it via a small lift. A clothesline of colorful drawings drying in the sun. Typhoon's paw prints marked in the dirt near the rosebeds. The mansion, once as silent as a mausoleum dedicated to Helen's memory, now pulsed with the sounds of life. Children's laughter echoing through the corridors, music drifting from speakers installed in various rooms, the joyful barking of Typhoon chasing butterflies in the garden. On that particularly significant Saturday morning, Gregory adjusted his tie in front of the mirror while watching, through the bedroom window, as Sophia pushed Peter's chair through the garden, showing her brother a new flower that had bloomed overnight. The contrast between the frightened, suspicious girl he had found in the park and the confident child he now saw was astonishing. "The documents are all in order," reported Roger Foster, his lawyer and longtime friend, entering the room after being announced by Mr. Anthony. "The judge is just waiting for you for the final hearing." Gregory nodded, feeling a mix of nervousness and anticipation. Although the DNA test proved Sophia was his biological daughter, the legal procedures to fully regularize her situation had taken months of bureaucracy. Today, finally, the amended birth certificate would be issued, officially making Sophia Grace Harrington a legitimate heir of the family. "Do you think there could be any last-minute problems?" Gregory asked, trying to keep his voice calm. Roger smiled reassuringly. "Absolutely none. Judge Carman is known for prioritizing the well-being of children. The reports from the social worker and the psychologist are extremely positive. It's just a formality at this point." Minutes later, the whole family gathered in the entrance hall. Gregory in an impeccable suit, Peter wearing a dress shirt and a bow tie he had insisted on wearing because it's an important day, and Sophia, radiant in a light blue dress that enhanced her eyes, her hair in an elaborate braid done by Beatrice, who had come specially from Atlanta for the event. "Is everyone ready?" Gregory asked, unable to hide his pride as he looked at his children. Sophia nodded, holding Peter's hand tightly. In recent months, she had developed a protective stance towards her brother, always attentive to his needs, always ready to defend him from any adversity, real or imagined. In the car on the way to the Ashton Creek courthouse, Sophia remained unusually silent. Gregory noticed her gaze lost in the urban landscape speeding by the window. "Is everything okay, sweetie?" he asked, meeting her eyes in the rearview mirror. Sophia hesitated before answering. "After today, it'll be official, right? I'll be a Harrington forever?" "You're already a Harrington, Sophia. The paper just confirms what we already know in our hearts." The girl nodded, but the shadow of worry didn't completely leave her eyes. What if one day you get tired of me? If I do something wrong, and—" "Sophia," Gregory interrupted firmly, pulling the car over for a moment so he could look at her directly. "Family isn't something that falls apart when someone makes a mistake. It's not conditional on good behavior. It's a bond for forever, you understand? I'll get angry with you many times, I'm sure. We'll argue like all families, but I will never, ever stop loving you or being your father." Sophia's eyes filled with unshed tears. "You really promise?" It was Peter who answered, reaching out his little hand to hold his sister's. "Family is forever, Sophia. You taught me that. Remember." The simplicity of that statement, coming from a 5-year-old, dissolved the tension. Sophia smiled, quickly wiping her eyes. "You're right, Peter. I did teach you that." The hearing with Judge Carman went exactly as Roger had predicted, quick and uncomplicated. The magistrate, a middle-aged woman with a kind smile, asked Sophia a few questions, checked the documents, and finally signed the court order amending the girl's birth certificate. "Sophia Grace Harrington, you are officially the daughter of Gregory Harrington and Helen Almeida Harrington," the judge declared, handing the document to Gregory. "Congratulations to the family." At the restaurant where they celebrated, Gregory watched with restrained emotion as the children shared a huge bowl of ice cream. In recent months, he had witnessed an extraordinary transformation in Sophia. The suspicious, ever-alert girl had gradually given way to a more relaxed and confident child. Not that the traumas had completely disappeared. There were still nights when Sophia woke up screaming, convinced it had all been a dream, and she was back on the streets. There were still moments when she withdrew at the slightest sign of conflict, as if fearing punishment or abandonment. The psychologist explained that these were scars that would take years, perhaps a lifetime, to fully heal. But there were also remarkable advances. Sophia had adapted surprisingly well to school, where her sharp intelligence soon made her stand out among her classmates. Despite starting behind in some subjects, her thirst for knowledge and determination allowed her to progress rapidly, even skipping a grade after special assessments. "What are you thinking about, Dad?" Sophia asked, interrupting his reverie. The ice cream had left a chocolate mustache on her upper lip. Gregory smiled, handing her a napkin. "About how life takes surprising turns. 7 months ago, you and I were complete strangers. And now we're a family," she completed, with a wisdom that sometimes surprised everyone. "The family Mom dreamed of for us." The mention of Helen, which once caused almost physical pain, now brought a sweet melancholy. She was present in every one of Sophia's features, in every expression, in every gesture. It was as if a part of her had returned through her daughter. After lunch, following a tradition they had established since Sophia arrived, the family drove to Peaceful Meadows Cemetery. At first, the girl had been hesitant to visit Helen's grave, perhaps feeling like an intruder in the established grief of Gregory and Peter. Over time, however, the visits became an important ritual in her process of connecting with the mother she had never known personally. Before the white marble headstone, where Helen's name was engraved in gold letters, Sophia carefully placed a bouquet of yellow roses, her mother's favorite. Then, as she always did, she knelt and spoke in a low voice, as if conversing with her mother in private. "Hi, Mom. Today is a special day. I'm officially Sophia Grace Harrington now. The judge said I always was since I was born, but now it's on paper." She paused, arranging the flowers. "I wish you were here to see how strong Peter is getting. The doctors are amazed with his progress in physical therapy, and Dad smiles a lot more now." Gregory and Peter stood at a respectful distance, allowing Sophia her private moment. From where he stood, Gregory could only see the movement of his daughter's lips as she continued her silent conversation with Helen. "I think I understand why you did what you did, Mom. Dr. Camilla says that sometimes people make hard decisions thinking they're protecting the ones they love. I wish I had known you, but I know you were with me this whole time, even when I didn't know it." Sophia touched the locket she never took off. "Thank you for never giving up on looking for me. I found my way back home now." In the car, returning to the mansion, Sophia asked to stop by the park where she and Peter had first met. Willow Creek Park, now familiar, looked very different under the radiant spring sun compared to the rainy winter day 6 months ago. "It was right there," Peter pointed enthusiastically as they stopped near the lake. "The chair got stuck in the mud and Sophia saved me." Sophia smiled, but her eyes held a deeper understanding. "Actually, I think you were the one who saved me, Peter." Life at the Harrington mansion had settled into a new normal that, to any outside observer, would seem to have always existed. The children went to school, Sophia to regular classes, Peter to a specialized institution with a program adapted to his specific needs. Gregory had rearranged his professional commitments to be more present in his children's lives, often surprising them with special activities on Friday afternoons. That evening after dinner, Mr. Anthony entered the living room, where the family was watching a movie, carrying a tray with mail. "This arrived for Miss Sophia," he announced, handing her a small package. Sophia examined the wrapping with curiosity. There was no return address, only her full name written by hand. Inside, she found a small carved wooden box and a note. "This belonged to your mother," the brief message read. "It was left in my care to be delivered to her daughter when she was found. Alma asked me to fulfill this last wish if anything happened to her. Forgive us for all the suffering caused. The signature was just M, with no further explanation. With trembling fingers, Sophia opened the small box. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a small crescent moon, identical to the locket she wore. "That was your mother's," Beatrice explained, recognizing the jewelry immediately. "Helen wore it as a teenager. When she found out she was pregnant, she said she would save it to give to her daughter when she was born." Sophia put the bracelet on her wrist, admiring how the charm caught the light. It was as if somehow the circle was finally closing, the missing link between mother and daughter restored through that small silver object. "How do you think they found you?" Peter asked, ever curious. Sophia shrugged. "Maybe Mom helped, somehow." The answer, in its childlike simplicity, held a truth that resonated deeply with everyone present. It was as if Helen had, in fact, orchestrated this entire reunion. The sudden storm, Peter's wandering off, the unlikely meeting between a street girl and a boy in a wheelchair. Later, after the children had gone to sleep, Gregory remained on the mansion's veranda, contemplating the starry sky with a glass of whiskey in his hand. The unsigned package raised new questions, but he had decided not to investigate further. Some questions were perhaps best left unanswered. "Thank you, Helen," he whispered into the night. "For our children. For everything." A gentle breeze stirred the roses in the garden, carrying with it the scent that so reminded him of his wife. Gregory smiled, feeling a peace he hadn't experienced in years. His family was whole again. In the children's room, for Sophia had insisted on sleeping in the same space as Peter, claiming he still needed someone nearby at night, the girl was finishing telling a story to her brother. And then, the lost princess found her way back to her castle, discovering that her little brother and her father had never stopped looking for her. And they lived happily ever after. "Just like us," Peter murmured, already drifting off to sleep. Sophia smiled, stroking her brother's hair. "Just like us, Peter." Lying in her own bed, Sophia touched the locket and the bracelet, now reunited, completing the story her mother had begun years ago. Through the window, a particularly bright star seemed to wink directly at her. "Good night, Mom," Sophia whispered. "I'm home now." End of story. Dear listeners, we hope that the journey of Sophia and her family has deeply touched your hearts. Just as Peter and Gregory never gave up on finding the missing link in their family, we never give up on bringing you stories that move and transform. If this narrative of reunion and redemption has touched your soul, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell to receive alerts for new American stories that celebrate family ties and overcoming adversity. Leave a comment below telling us which moment in this story moved you the most, and share it with that special person who, like Sophia, brightens your life with their presence. Remember, sometimes the most beautiful destinies are written through the most difficult trials. Until the next story,